Hi class, in this video I am going to go over the instructions for the research paper. However, first I wanted to draw your attention to the research paper module. In this module, I have some information for writing research papers, as you will see in these two links. I also have some information on writing cause and effect papers, which is the type of paper that you're going to write for the research paper. In this module, there's also some information on annotated bibliographies. Please keep in mind that the annotated bibliography is due before your research paper. However, the sources that you are planning to use or that you've evaluated for your research paper, those are going to be included in the annotated bibliography. So basically, the annotated bibliography should be about or over the sources that you are planning to use in your research paper. And of course, there's more specific information about the annotated bibliography in this week, in the week 14, because that's a separate assignment. But I just wanted to explain why it's included in the research paper module, because you're essentially working with the same sources. Then in the last module, we have APA and research tools. So if you're not too familiar with APA citation, I realize that all of you took English 1110 or English 111, so you should be familiar with APA. But in case you are a little bit rusty or it's been a while since you took English 1110, you can go ahead and consult this module, and it provides more information on citing sources in APA. Keep in mind that it is a research paper, so you have to make sure that you actually cite sources, and you need at least 5 sources. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the assignment. You will find the instructions under Final Research Paper. Basically, what you have to do for this final research paper is you have to write a cause and effect essay that is about 5 to 7 pages. The format should be an APA and everything should be double spaced. Basically, what a cause and effect paper is, it explores a relationship between the topic and its effects. So the whole point of it is to demonstrate that the two things are related. Now, of course, I say two things, but you're dealing with very complex topics, so obviously you're going to have multiple causes and multiple effects. So please keep that in mind, that we're not looking at just one cause and one effect. You could have one major cause, and then you can go ahead and have several effects. However, you want to choose a topic that is complex enough that you can discuss in 5 to 7 double-spaced pages. So that is what the purpose of the paper is about. I do list some topics here, which I will get into in a few minutes. But I do want to point out that I basically outlined the essay for you. So when you look at the essay, you want to go ahead and look and try to organize it this way. First, you want to have an introduction. You want to have the history of the issue. I put this as a separate section because maybe your introduction requires a lot of background information and there's no space to put the history. It depends on your topic. Keep in mind that these are sections. They're not necessarily paragraphs. So each bullet point does not represent a paragraph because, like I mentioned, this essay should be 5 to 7 pages, so obviously you're going to need more than 5 paragraphs. So this is just sections. So the first section should be an introduction. Then you should explain the history as well as important background information. 3, you should also discuss the evolution of the issue. How has it evolved? 4, who is impacted by this issue? And when I say who, I mean people, policies, government, businesses, climate, anything that you can think of. So I guess it should really be who or what is impacted by this. Then you're going to get to the meat of this paper, which are the causes. So after exploring the history and evolution of the issue, what are some of its main causes? Keep in mind that causes can be a variety of things such as people, politicians, teachers, police, etc., government policies, economy, poverty, human conditions, loss of values. So basically causes can be a lot of different things. They don't have to be tangible. They could be things like cultural values, self-esteem, national pride, racism. A lot of those can be causes. After you've done that, you want to go ahead and explore the effects. What is the effect of each cause you explored in the previous section? So obviously you don't want to discuss effects of causes that you haven't discussed in your essay yet. You want to focus on how and why. So basically, how is this the effect of that cause and why? For example, if you say that poverty was a cause of cartel violence, how and why did poverty cause cartel violence? That's basically what you are focusing on. Now, I do provide a tip here, and I do mention that it's probably best for organization purposes to include the cause and then in another paragraph discuss the effect, and then discuss the second cause and then another effect. So this way you kind of keep it organized, because you don't want to discuss all of the causes and then go ahead and discuss all of the different effects. I think for an essay of this length and for a complex issue like the border, you want to go ahead and maybe have about 3 to 5 causes, no more, because if you have more than 5 causes, it's going to be too long and it might get a little bit overwhelming and difficult to follow. So just keep in mind that if you have 3 causes, you should have 3 effects as well. Now, after you've discussed the causes and effects, you also have to look at the impact. Okay, so you've discussed the effects, so what are the impacts that we're having based on these effects? This is different than what you discuss at the beginning of your paper, because the beginning of your paper asks who is impacted by the issue. So in this case, you could say, well, the people of the border are impacted by this. However, when you look at the impact towards the end of your essay, you're looking at who is impacted by the effects. So remember that the effects can be something like poverty. So who is directly affected by the poverty? In this case, the whole country wouldn't necessarily be affected. It might just be like a specific group of people. So just keep that in mind, that at the beginning you're discussing this more in terms of like who's impacted as a whole because of this issue. Whereas at the end, you're looking specifically at who is impacted by each effect. Then after you've discussed the impact, you want to go ahead and look at the results. What is the future outlook of this issue? What do you predict the results and consequences to be? Basically, think about it this way. What are these effects going to lead to? Now, we're not looking at, is this going to solve the issue? You can say the issue will be resolved, but you don't necessarily have to say that. So don't think like, oh, okay, I have to find a solution for results. No, you're basically just telling us things might get better based on the research, things might get worse, things might stay the same. One of the things that we've learned at the beginning of this semester is that the border has changed a lot and it continues to change a lot. So based on that, do you just see the issue changing again, getting worse, getting better? Again, it's dependent on the research that you've done and what you think is going to happen. Last but not least is your conclusion. Why is this issue important to the border area? And of course, summarize the main points of your essay, which are the causes and effects. For this paper, you're going to need 5 outside sources, and please keep in mind that only one of these sources can be a website. And what I mean by that is commercial website. Obviously, online newspapers, online periodicals, online journals, online magazines, those don't count as websites because those are online periodicals. So we're talking about straight up commercial websites. You can only use one of those. And the reason for that is because I want students to produce a variety of sources. I don't want someone to just go to Google and find the first 5 sources that you find. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so there's also a rubric that you will find below, but I want to discuss the topic. So obviously for this topic, you want to choose something that is related to the US-Mexico border, and there are a lot of topics that you can pick. However, I have gone and selected a few. So the topics I selected, some of them are kind of general because I think that they can lead you to more narrow topics. For example, international bridges, that could lead to something more specific like security policies or wait times. Now, it might seem like really simple, like, oh, okay, well, the wait times have always been long, but they got longer after September 11th, right? And then with COVID, they got longer as well. So when you're looking at a topic, the first step is to pick a topic, and then since you're going to explore the history of the topic, you also want to look at the time frame. Looking at the time frame is going to help you find the causes. So like I said, with the international bridges wait times, the lines really started getting longer after September 11th for obvious reasons. But then they got longer during COVID. So you might want to explore the causes between September 11th, 2001, all the way to maybe to 2022, right? So you might want to look at the causes between those 20 years, 21 years. That's what I suggest, because you don't want to look at a very large time frame, because then you're going to come up with hundreds of causes possibly. So you want to make sure that you narrow down your topic by the issue you want to discuss, but also the time frame. When it comes to the border economy, again, that's a very broad topic, but you want to look at shopping trends along the border. You also want to look at pricing. I think an interesting topic on this would be, the trend of people going to Mexico for cheaper healthcare, cheaper groceries. That's something that you could kind of explore the causes. Like, why is it that people now are going over there more than they used to, right? Obviously, it has to do with the economy and inflation, but you would explore the causes. Speaking of time frames, when it comes to the cartel violence in Mexican cities along the U.S. border, this again has been going on for a long time. It probably started getting bad during the 90s, and of course, it got really bad around 2008, and recently in August of 2022 we saw some more flare-ups with violence. So again, when you're looking at causes, it's important to kind of look at the time frame, right? And just try to think about, okay, what was happening during the 90s? Was that when a lot of corruption was going on? Things like that. Of course, corruption has been going on all the time, but you want to look at a specific time frame to try to narrow things down. And keep in mind that your research should produce information about certain trends that could have led to causes like poverty, corruption, what was going on like in terms of policies, right? Like we had certain policies in the US in the 90s that affected the work in the United States. A lot of companies went to Mexico. So you want to look at things like that, like NAFTA. You want to look at international policies as well, because those could be part of the causes. Now, keep in mind that you also want to go ahead and include the effects. So what effect has poverty had on drug smuggling, right? If we look at femicide in Juarez, again, that has been going on for a long time. Nothing has been done. So when you are dealing with a topic like femicide in Juarez, you could look at it as, okay, I'm going to explore what's happening, or you could explore why nothing has been done, why nothing has been solved. And you could kind of explore the causes of the inactivity and the lack of solutions and why it's still happening. So there's a lot of different aspects that you can look at dealing with one topic, right? That's what makes a topic good, is that it's complex and you can kind of look at it from multiple sides and try to figure out what are the causes of this angle? What are the causes of that angle? Like I was saying with femicide, you could look at what's causing it, you can also look at why we haven't done anything about it. So those are two different angles. So I hope that kind of helps with the topic selection. Like I was saying, you know, topics are complex, and in nature a cause and effect paper is complex, but keep in mind that you're not trying to come up with a definitive answer. You're not trying to say this is exactly what has caused cartel violence in Mexico and in border cities. That's not the point of the essay. The point of the essay is to explore the different causes and effect, and in doing so, you're learning more about the different relationships between all of these effects, and you're also learning more about the topic, right? Because if you think about it, with anything having to do with the US-Mexico border, there's no such thing as like just one cause and just one effect. There's a lot of different causes and effects, right? And what's even more interesting is that there's many changes that have occurred in the US-Mexico border throughout the years. So have those causes and effects changed? Have they remained the same? Most likely they have changed because society has changed, right? Events have happened. So events cause different things to happen, and because of that we have different effects. So like I said, I hope this clarifies the research paper for you. If you have any questions, please let me know and I will be glad to answer them.